In Dayton, Tennessee, in July 1925, a man named John Thomas Scopes was put on trial for teaching the theory of evolution. This 11-day-long trial brought forth the debate between different scientific origins taught in schools, extensively between creationism and evolution. This monkey trial formed thoughts and opinions across the country of which theory would be the best to teach students in schools. This trial was a spectacle in the public's eye. The debate created movement and knowledge to the public about both theories, especially creating involvement in curriculums. This battle of beginnings led to evolution being a widely accepted theory and taught broadly in the United States. The evolution of evolution in schools does not start at the monkey trial. Instead, it starts with a man named Charles Darwin. In the late 1800s, he became renowned for his research in the Galapagos Islands and other areas of the world, including Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, in which he traveled the world to study the natural history of life. This led him to a 5-year adventure in the Galapagos Islands, where he discovered the theory of natural selection, or survival of the fittest. His theory presented the idea that each descendant was slightly different from its parent, and these generations of differences result in eventually something very different from the starting ancestor. Survival of the fittest adds on to this theory, where the most fit and able were the ones who survived and reproduced, who passed their genetics down to the child. This idea is a theory of evolution. This theory is widely accepted in the scientific community today. According to Evolution Education and Outreach, teachers agree with evolution almost 13.5 more times than people who agree with creationism, or think it's a valid theory. A lot of schools in the United States teach evolution in the present, but it took a while for the theory to catch on, especially in Tennessee. The theory contrasts with the Christianity origin belief, where God created the heavens and the earth with everything in it in 6 days and rested on the seventh. There was a heavy weight of Christianity pressure in Tennessee during the Scopes trial, and so evolution was somewhat, if not completely, ostracized from the minds of the people. This included schools. What set up the monkey trial was a wealthy Tennessee farmer. The idea of evolution did not sit well with John Washington Butler, who became incredulous when he heard of a child coming home from college believing in evolution and not the Bible. Butler did not like this, so he set forth to create a law which banned evolution in schools. This bill, known as the Butler Act, was passed in Tennessee, stating, "An act prohibiting the teaching of evolution theory in all universities, normal, and other public schools of Tennessee, which are supported in whole or in part by the public school funds of the state, and provided penalties for the violation thereof." After this bill was passed, the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, caught wind of it. They thought this act was unconstitutional, that it went against the U.S. Constitution. For the stated goal of the ACLU is it dares to create a more perfect union, beyond one person, party, or side. The ACLU responded to the Butler Act by saying that they would defend a teacher who would stand up to it. They posted this through the Chattanooga Daily News, in which a criminal lawyer by the name of George Raplaya read the section, and decided to take on the challenge of this trial, excited by the speculation it would cause. Raplaya convinced Fred Robinson, the chairman on the school board, and the superintendent of the local school district, Walter White, to try the case in Dayton, Tennessee. They decided on John Scopes, a man who didn't have a lot to lose. The defenders and Scopes were in for a long battle, because it wasn't just the trial of the Butler Act, but between evolution and Christianity in schools. As the word of this monkey trial spread throughout the country, hundreds of people flocked to this evolutionary spectacle. Stands and concessions were set up around the town of Dayton, Tennessee. It was much a legal debate as it was an event. The first live broadcast was casted there in Dayton, Tennessee by YGN Radio. This was such a wide event because it brought publicity to not only Dayton, but to the theory of evolution and to promote the ACLU. The defendant team included a man who was a criminal lawyer by the name of Clarence Darrow. He was highly respected for his work on the Eugene V. Debs case, which earned him the title Attorney for the Damned. Dudley Field Malone was also on the defense team. The prosecution included William Jennings Bryan, known for his preachings and support for women's rights and election of senators by popular votes. The prosecution team also included William Jennings Bryan Jr. and Sue K. Hicks. On July 10, 1924, Judge Ralston opened up the trial by asking Reverend Lemuel M. Cartwright to open in prayer. The defense knew that they could not get the Butler Act to be declared unconstitutional, so their goal was to appeal to a larger court, as well as set up the theory of evolution as an accepted science. The prosecution was not determining the value of the Butler Act, but if Scopes violated it or not. The first 2 days were speeches, laying down the foundations for the sides of the trial. On the third day of the trial, before opening prayer, Darrow stated that opening the trial with the prayer was wrong because of what the trial was about. With heated debate on this, Judge Ralston finally overruled the objection. He argued that it had nothing to do with the case at hand. The prayer was merely asking God to bless and guide the proceedings, not to influence the call in any way. As the trial went on to the edge of the weekend, people started to leave, but little did they know the real heat was yet to come. On the last day of the trial, when the witnesses of evolution were no longer allowed, because the court thought that having experts in evolution didn't add anything to help the trial. Without the experts' testimony, the defense team didn't have anything. They needed to prove evolution. But Darrow had one last trick up his sleeve. William Jennings Bryan walked up to the witness stand. Then the questions hit. Darrow started to ask about what Bryan believed in. Darrow thought by discrediting fundamentalist Christianity, he could create speculation of its limited view of the Bible, giving credit to evolution. He was playing this in for the long game. He interrogated Bryan on the witness stand, asking him if he thought everything in the Bible is to be taken literally. He answered that everything should be given as listed, but some words are used figuratively. He interrogated Bryan on Jonah the whale, the flood, but most importantly, in creation, in which Darrow asked Bryan the question, do you believe that God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days? He answered, not in days of 24 hours. He was thinking the Bible described the days more as periods of time. This caused stir in the crowd. Here was a giant for the Bible, and yet he didn't take the Bible as it said, as most people thought it said. Question after question, Darrow swept Bryan away, revealing that Bryan didn't know much about science, or even the Bible. The crowd saw that Bryan couldn't prove or withstand Darrow's questions. The court, despite Darrow's efforts, still fined Scopes, and the Butler Act was not proclaimed unconstitutional. But they achieved something larger. They achieved publicity. They got the question of evolution and Christianity stirring in the minds of the people, for not only people's view of evolution in schools, but for Christians to explore their religion closer than before. After the trial was done, the word of Darrow's interrogation spread like wildfire around the country. The speculation grew as the proceedings ended. People were nervous for what this trial would cause. The trial did its job by promoting not only Dayton, Tennessee, but the ACLU and the evolutionary theory, which was just what the defense wanted. As one newspaper quotes, as to the teaching of the theory of evolution does not endanger the existence of the capitalist state, the United States Supreme Court will undoubtedly rule on the side of safe and sane progress. Dayton will get a lot of publicity out of it, and real estate values should go up. This bombardment of media caused people to contemplate their views on their beliefs. Schools and governments were constructing opinions on this matter. Court cases were present for the demolishing and building of evolutionary bans in schools. Some people were just nervous, waiting to see what the future may hold. One newspaper commented, if the state's charges against Scopes are sustained, you will see other evolution trials and perhaps a movement in Congress to control the thoughts as well as the actions of the people. Of course, there are gray areas also. There wasn't just black and white or evolution and Christianity. Some people fought to maintain the religious mortality for their children, just not in school workplaces. Others sought to teach both theories in schools, though that is stated as unconstitutional today because it shows bias for religion. As much speculation as the trial caused, the fact that Scopes lost the trial still made people weary of evolution. With the public not fully accepting evolution, textbook companies, which wrote the school curriculums, erred more on the side of popular feeling. To raise profit, they minimized or unincluded the evolutionary theory. This called the scientific community to pass over evolution, not necessarily because it was unwanted, just unnoticeable, until the 1960s. In the 1960s, only 2 states had evolution banning laws, Arkansas and Mississippi. An effort to still have creationism in schools, for over the years that had quickly become a religion, not science, tried to create the balanced treatment, in which if one theory would be taught, the other would be too. Even more, they started calling creationism creation science, in order to create a more scientific aspect to it. The Edwards versus Aguillard brought this balanced treatment to court and won by stating that creation science was a religion. Over this time in the late 1900s, cases against evolution not directly involving creation science were shut down too, including cases about how mandatory evolution teachings violated teachers' free speech rights or the rights of parents and children's belief who conflicted with evolution. Nowadays, evolution is taught broadly in the United States because of the foundational publicity in the Scopes trial. If it had not been for John Thomas Scopes, the ACLU,
George Troplea, Clarence Darrow, and William Jennings Bryan, the education system would be very different. It is important to remember the rights of everybody in the classroom, whether involving religion, science, personal belief, in order to get a fair and unbiased education for everyone.